The Gotei 13 is the mighty military division of the Soul Society founded by head captain Yamamoto hundreds of years ago. He has been the leader of the 13 court guard squads since its very inception. Shinigami are only admitted into the Gotei 13 after successfully completing their training at the Shino Academy, which is located within the Seirei. The captains who comprised of the original Gotei 13 are an exception to this, as they were pretty much headhunted by Yamamoto because of the infamous reputations that they held within the Soul Society. In chapter 319, Yamamoto speaks about the duty of the Gotei 13 officers, as he states that they are required to give their lives in order to vanquish any evil that threatens the Soul Society. These Shinigami don't just exist to kill hollows, but they exist in order to maintain the balance between the realms and to protect the Soul Society from any threat. In this video, I want to focus entirely on the original iteration of the Gotei 13. During the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime, we were given exclusive scenes featuring the original Gotei 13. At the start of episode 7, we received a flashback where head captain Yamamoto is surrounded by 12 other captains, as we are given our first proper glimpse of the first generation of captains, who Yhwach had described as being nothing more than a brutal mob of dangerous killers. This idea of their criminality is further reinforced in chapter 523 of the manga, when Shunsui, the newly appointed head captain, orders Kinpachi to train with Unohana in order to make him stronger. He reveals that Unohana was a part of the original generation of the Gotei 13, even going as far as to describe her as the most infamous villain in the history of the Soul Society. Now definitely be sure to stick around until the end of this video, as I'll be deep diving into why this first generation of the Gotei 13 had such a fearsome reputation. I'll be going over everything that we know about the original Gotei 13, covering details revealed about them within the anime and the manga, as well as delving into each of their identities and their appearance via a piece of artwork that Kubo had drawn of them just before episode 7 of the 1000-Year Blood War arc anime had dropped. The most important aspect of this video is easily theorizing about their backstories, abilities, and if some of these original Gotei 13 members will be reappearing within the story via the upcoming Hell arc in the manga. So without further delay, here is my complete breakdown and analysis of the original Gotei 13. Let's start by talking about the founder of the 13 court guard squads. Head captain Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni has always been the captain of the 1st division as well as the captain commander of the entire Gotei 13. It's an understatement to say that he is a force to be reckoned with. Being over 2000 years old, he is one of the 2 surviving members of the original Gotei 13. In chapter 523, we realize that Yamamoto was the person responsible for having recruited Unohana into the Gotei 13 back when she had held the title of the first Kinpachi, and she was known for being the most ruthless criminal in the Soul Society, as well as being a master swordsman. Yamamoto was also responsible for personally instructing Shunsui and Ukitake, having such a close bond with them that it's almost like a father and son relationship. After graduating from the Shinigami Academy, they are joined the Gotei 13, and both Shunsui and Ukitake were the first graduates of the academy to become captain rank. So we know that in the earliest days of the Gotei 13, Yamamoto did not recruit any Shinigami from the academy to become captains. Instead, the original Gotei 13 captains had comprised of people that he had personally handpicked because of their various set of skills and expertise. And in the case of Unohana and members of the noble families who have made it into the captain positions, it's because of the infamous or honorable titles that they held within the Soul Society at the time. In chapter 511, Yhwach notes that the original Gotei 13 that Yamamoto had established were protectors only in name. The fact was that they were nothing less than a brutal mob of killers, stating that this band of unruly criminals was held together by their leader, who he describes as a true demon of the sword, further describing Yamamoto as being somebody who at this time would have done whatever it takes to have defeated their enemy. It paints a picture of head captain Yamamoto as a cold-blooded and ruthless tyrant, and this is further emphasized when Yhwach ponders over the realization that the deaths of Yamamoto's subordinates wasn't something that had affected him when he had led the original Gotei 13. But after the battle against the Quincy 1000 years ago, where Yhwach and his army were defeated, it had led to a period of peace within the Seirei, and Yhwach states that over that millennium, Yamamoto and the Shinigami in general have become significantly weaker. The anime gives us the luxury of some anime exclusive scenes, and we receive a flashback where we see Yamamoto as a young man leading the rest of the captains in the fight against Yhwach and the Quincy. Even 1000 years ago, he was still extremely powerful. In another flashback, when Shunsui he sees a painting of him engulfed in flames, Yamamoto describes himself as a monster that should never reappear within the Soul Society. In chapter 504, we learned from a flashback that Yamamoto was the founder of the Genryu style of swordsmanship, as well as being the head instructor of the Genji school. During those days, Yamamoto would come to be known by the nickname Ijusai because of the scar on his forehead. This was a nickname that was given to him by his close associates like Chojuro Sasakibe. As he had gained more military fame, Ijusai was the name that he had come to be known as across the entirety of the Soul Society. During flashbacks which occur within the manga, we learn more about his relationship with his lieutenant Chojuro Sasakibe, who routinely had visited him when he was younger just so that he could work under Yamamoto as his right-hand man. During a mock battle between the two of them, Yamamoto was able to defeat Sasakibe, but not before another scar was left on his forehead after Sasakibe had activated his Bankai and had demonstrated it against Yamamoto. After his wound had healed, the scar that remained resembled a cross on his forehead, which had then led many people to now refer to him by the nickname Jujisai. We learned that the only reason that Yamamoto changed his name to Genryusai was for the sake of his lieutenant, who stubbornly refused to call him anything other than Ijusai out of respect. Reflecting upon these flashbacks, it reveals a heavy contrast to who Yamamoto was and who Yamamoto is now. We do realize that Yhwach was ultimately right in his assessment, that during the 1000 years of peace, Yamamoto had somewhere along the line lost his fearsome edge that he had come to be known for. This monstrous nature which had allowed him to so easily override any morality or ethics in order to achieve his given goal. Because of him softening over time, it had ultimately led to his demise. Because over those 1000 years, Yhwach and his army were constantly reminded by their ruthless defeats at the hands of the monstrous original Gotei 13. Yamamoto's band of ruthless Shinigami had actually assisted in giving birth to Yhwach and his army of immoral soldiers, who during the first Quincy invasion of the Soul Society had utterly decimated the Serite, along with killing countless Shinigami. This was their revenge for being brutally defeated a millennium ago, and most of the horrible acts that they had committed during the 1000-year Blood War arc would have been inspired by or learnt from the original Gotei 13. We're now going to be talking about the captain of the 2nd division of the Gotei 13, Chika Shihoin. Now this individual, like the other captains of the Gotei 13, did not make an appearance within the manga. Chika does appear to be the youngest amongst his cohorts, and this is undoubtedly because of his youthful appearance. With his radiant, tanned skin and captivating golden brown eyes, Chika really does look like he's an ancestor of Yoruichi Shihoin. The Shihoin clan is one of the 5 great noble families within the Soul Society. Given the traditions of the Shihoin clan, it is plausible to assume that Chika had pioneered the leadership of the Onmeet Skido as well as leading the 2nd division at the same time. We know that the leader of these two organizations also goes by the name of God of the Heavenly Granted Armaments. They watch over the items given to them by the gods, and this includes treasured tools and armaments. During the anime exclusive scene in Core 1 of the 1000-year Blood War arc, Chika showcases his martial arts prowess by being able to defeat a Quincy with a single kick. He definitely had an insane amount of spiritual pressure, which is to be expected because he is a captain after all. And comparing Chika's abilities to Yoruichi's, we can deduce that he is also a master at Shumpo. He appears to also be an expert at Hakuda, as we see him relying on this technique when he is fighting against the Quincy soldiers during their invasion 1000 years ago. Similar to every Shinigami at captain level, Chika must also possess a Bankai and a Shikai. Now, we don't know what these are at the moment, and given that we don't even know what Yoruichi's Bankai or Shikai is within the anime and the manga, and we've never really seen her utilize her Zanpakuto, it's highly likely that Chika also doesn't prefer using his Zanpakuto, instead relying on more hand-to-hand and Kido-based forms of combat. Now, Chika may have lightning style abilities, which Yoruichi displays excellently during the 1000-year Blood War arc via her God of Thunder form. From the details about the Shihoin clan that we learn from Yoruichi, we can assume that Chika can also transform into a cat, with it being a Shihoin clan exclusive ability. Unlike Yoruichi, we do actually get to see Chika's Zanpakuto. From the artwork released by Kubo, it is shown to us in its sealed form, as it is depicted to take the shape of a katana with an embellished X-shaped golden sword guard, as well as having an orange handle and a purple tassel at the bottom and an orange scabbard. And these colors of course are reminiscent of Yoruichi's appearance, with her purple hair and orange clothes. The 3rd division captain at the time of the original Gotei 13 is Kinroku Izuhara. From our initial impression of him, Izuhara appears to be a cold, no-nonsense individual, so it's going to be interesting to see what Kubo will deliver in terms of his personality possibility if the original Gotei 13 feature within the manga or the anime again. In the official character art that was released by Shonen Jump, he appears as a man who wears glasses and the standard captain's coat over a black shihakusho, and his clothing is fastened together at the midsection with a thick green waistband. The one interesting thing that stands out about his character design is that he wears glasses because, as we know, Kubo tends to draw characters with specific accessories in order to manipulate the perception of the audience. Like with Aizen, he had given him glasses during the Soul Society arc so that he would come across as being gentle and kind. When we see Izuhara during the anime exclusive flashback scene, he maintains a stern expression throughout his battle against the Quincy, where he is seen dispatching several Quincy soldiers, and it would be safe to assume that he has mastered the art of the sword, hand-to-hand combat, fast movement, and lastly Kido spells. According to the artwork that was drawn by Kubo of the original Gotei 13, what we know about Izuhara's Zanpakuto is that in its sealed form, it takes the shape of a wakizashi with a green handle. It also has a square golden sword guard with circular engravings and protruding corners, completed by a green scabbard. His Shika and Bankai are not revealed within the manga, anime, or the artwork drawn by Kubo, but we can obviously assume that they are a spectacle to behold. Next, we have Chigiri Shijima, who of course is the very first captain of the 4th Division. He is depicted as a pale-skinned individual with grey hair that cascades as long bangs framing his face. And within the artwork drawn by Kubo, he wears a standard captain's coat over his Shinigami Shihakusho. Within the current generation of the Gotei 13, Squad 4 is led by none other than Isane Kotetsu, who had taken up the role following the death of Unohana Retsu. The 4th Division is the medical supply division, and they are responsible for healing the injured and doing most of the manual labor work by cleaning up the Serite. We learned during the Thousand Year Blood War arc that Tenjiro Krinji was responsible for teaching Unohana some of the medicinal techniques that we have seen her display throughout the series. We have no idea if the 4th Division was the medical supply division prior to Unohana becoming its captain. It's hard to really even tell if each of the divisions of the Gotei 13 had any real purpose when the original Gotei 13 was first established. During the anime flashback sequence, Chigiri is shown decapitating several soldiers with his Zanpakuto, which is notably in its sealed state. It's scenes like this that make us understand why Yuhobak had described the original Gotei 13 as a group of savage killers. Chigiri appears to be an expert swordsman, with its Zanpakuto in its sealed state taking up the shape of a katana with a purple handle and a rectangular silver sword guard with a purple scabbard. The original Gotei 13's captain of the 5th Division is a man named Danjiro Obana. His successors who had eventually taken up his role include the likes of Sosuke Aizen and Shinji Hirako. While half of his face is covered in the artwork drawn by Kubo, we can see that Danjiro is drawn as a tall, fair-skinned man with brown eyes, thick eyebrows, and wavy, shaggy light brown hair that appears to be tied in a short ponytail at the back, with his hair also forming prominent sideburns just right below his ears. Complementing his standard captain's coat over his black Shinigami Shihakusho, he also wears a gold-trimmed blue glove that protects his wrists and his hand, which is fastened with a red string and a blue breastplate right underneath the Shihakusho. These combat accessories that he is wearing highlight that he spends a lot of time on the battlefield. Before we learnt the names of any of these characters, a lot of people, even including myself, had believed this to be an ancestor of the Shiba clan, given the fact that he has a very muscular stature and pronounced sideburns. I mean, it is hard to deny the resemblance that he shares with the likes of Ganju and even Isshin. He may not have the same last name as them, but we can also remember that Ichigo is still a descendant of the Shiba clan despite him having the surname Kurosaki, so who knows, Danjiro Obana may still be linked to the Shiba family in some way. During his brief appearance in the anime exclusive flashback, Danjiro is shown ruthlessly dismembering the Quincy soldiers while they invade the Soul Society. From the anime visuals, we see him very proficient with his swordsmanship as he appears to effortlessly cut down his enemies, all the while his Zanpakuto remains in its sealed state. From Kubo's artwork and the anime, we can see that his sealed Zanpakuto takes the form of a katana with a blue handle and a golden rectangular sword guard decorated with an intertwining design, and the sword appears to have a matching blue scabbard. Honestly, out of all of the characters, I believe that Danjiro has the most unique and memorable design, and I hope that in the future we do get to learn more details about him, and if our speculation about him being an ancestor of the Shiba clan is correct. It would be fascinating to learn the name of his Zanpakuto, and if he possesses any techniques which are similar to Ichigo's or Isshin's. Within the present timeline, the leader of the 6th Division is none other than Byakuya Kuchiki. In terms of the original Gotei 13, the 6th Division was first led by a young woman who went by the name of Furofushi Furofushi Saito. She is visually striking and extremely memorable due to her colourful long dark pink hair with pigtails. The two straps fixed on her head resemble an X formation which holds an eye patch over her left eye, leaving a section of bangs to fall on the right side of her face. In addition to the standard attire of a captain, she also wears a white strap of cloth around her head like a headband. It is hard to deny that her character design is the closest in resemblance to that of the Fullbringer Riruka. I've seen a lot of fans theorizing about her character and saying that she must be related to Riruka in some way. Personally, I do think that this is a bit of a stretch, and Kubo most likely had designed Furofushi based off of some of the elements originating from Riruka's character design. Going off of Furofushi's character design, perhaps her eye patch was a similar accessory that was needed to conceal her great spiritual pressure, like the eye patch that Kinpachi Zaraki wears. We know that this eye patch was actually given to Kinpachi from Mairi, who had developed it as a means of absorbing his excess spiritual pressure, so it's highly likely that Furofushi's eye patch actually covers an injury instead of it serving a specific purpose like it does with Kinpachi. Furofushi's Zanpakuto is an extremely long and curved blade, and she definitely demonstrates her brutal and sadistic nature during the anime flashback as she slashes Quincy's left and right with a menacing smile on her face. Out of all of the other captains, she definitely reminds me the most of Kinpachi due to some of the elements of her character design, as well as the way that the anime depicts her to be really enjoying the battle against the Quincy. Now, in general, the captains of the 7th Division are destined to stand out due to their unique looks. Seijin Komamura, who first appears with a metal contraption on his head, later we learn that he had in fact originated from the Wolf Clan, and he was ashamed of his appearance, hence why he had concealed his face. Now, in terms of uniqueness, I think that the original Gotei 13 captain of the 7th Division, Nobutsuna Shigyo, definitely steals the limelight in terms of his uniqueness. His portrayal hints at a touch of madness, with him being a tall, extremely pale individual with visibly sunken skin on his face and chest, mostly around his grey eyes. Upon closer inspection, we can even see his ribcage, which peeks out from his robes. He has a pointy black mustache that extends a couple of inches out from his face on either side, but is shaven in the middle, as well as a long black goatee covering the center of his chin, and spiky black hair that was largely covered by black fabric, which is wrapped around his head, framing his face. Nobutsuna does remind me of a pirate with the goatee look that he's got going on, and he definitely encapsulates the look of a ruthless and cold-blooded killer, and we can assume that the brown fur coat that he wears is a subtle nod from Kubo to the Wolf Clan, which Komamura descends from. I guess this is just me speculating, but perhaps he may have been an ancestor of the Wolf Clan who ended up committing some treacherous crime which had led to the clan being cursed. We can assume that he had a significant amount of spiritual pressure as well as expertise in swordsmanship. There is a lot to be said for his character design, as it most certainly stands out, and Nobutsuna Shigyo is a character that I definitely want to see utilized again, at least during the Hell arc, because if he is somehow linked to Komamura by being an ancestor of the Wolf Clan, it will be amazing to learn more about how the Wolf Clan ended up being cursed in the first place. Katori Batsu'unsai sounds remarkably similar to Hitogiri Batosai from Rurouni Kenshin, and she is in fact the captain of the 8th Division during the time of the original Gotei 13. She appears to be a petite young lady with wide-rimmed spectacles, which may be deceptively manipulating us to believe that she is a gentler and kinder character. But if her name Katori Batsu'unsai is anything like Hitogiri Batosai from Rurouni Kenshin, then you'll know that she must have a lot of blood on her hands, because in Rurouni Kenshin, the protagonist is introduced as Kenshin Himura. He is depicted to be a kind and gentle pacifist, refusing to use his sword unless it's a last resort, and even when he does use his sword in battle, he attacks with the blunt side of the blade. This is because Kenshin had used to be a former legendary assassin known as Hitogiri Batosai, the Manslayer. He now spends his time as a wandering swordsman, helping those in need while wielding a Sakabato, which is a reverse bladed sword, so that the cutting edge of the blade is facing towards him, and the curved side of his blade is used to attack his opponents, resulting in him being almost incapable of killing anyone. As a wandering samurai, he now offers protection to those in need as an atonement for all of the murders that he had once committed. As much as I love Rurouni Kenshin, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent here, because this is all speculation, but it would be really cool if Katori Batsu'unsai has a very similar story, as she may have had a wicked past which she now wants to correct after having joined the original Gotei 13 probably. In terms of her appearance, she wears a standard captain's uniform, and we can see that she has a pair of red sandals. Katori Katori's design is definitely eye-catching because of her long hair that is tied into multiple ringlets in one giant ponytail. Her character design definitely appears to have taken some inspiration from Lisa Yadomaru, who of course is the Vizard who was first introduced during the Iranka arc. As opposed to looking like a ruthless, bloodthirsty killer, Katori instead appears to be somewhat plain and even innocent. And to be honest, it's because of the glasses that she is wearing, which really do give her this innocent look, as we assume that she is probably more suited to doing research than fighting. But we do see what she is capable of during the battle against the Quincy via the brief anime flashback. I'm super excited about this character in particular because unlike most of the other captains, we get to see her cutting down the enemy soldiers into pieces with her shikai. Now, unlike Kenshin Himura, she actually wields a doubled-edged blade, and Katori displayed considerable swordsmanship when she was wielding her shikai, as she uses it to cut the soldiers of the Empire of Light into two pieces, and she appears to be attacking with some intense accuracy and speed, which again is making me think back to that parallel to Hitogiri Batosai. One thing is for certain, I don't think any of us should underestimate Katori just from her appearance. Who knows what treacherous acts she may have committed within the past that she is now trying to conceal behind her innocent looks. I love speculating about this parallel that she has with Rurouni Kenshin just by analysing the brief pieces of information that have been revealed about her. And the last thing that I want to speak about is that her Zanpakuto bears a very close resemblance to Ikaku Zanpakuto, so it does make me wonder if these two weapons may have similar abilities. Moving on to the very first captain of the 9th Division, we have Entetsu Kumoi, who has the most intriguing illustration as he is shown to be an overweight, bald man with absolutely no lips covering his yellow teeth. I mean, how on earth does he function on a day-to-day basis, and is he even able to speak? If you look closely, you can see that he has a scar that trails a few inches up from his left eye, and his thick glasses, which hide his eyes, do give him a somewhat of a menacing and fiendish look. His scars on his upper chest are carefully hidden by his shihakusho. Anime fans who have watched every single episode of the original Bleach anime, including all of the filler arcs, will probably pick up on the last name that Entetsu has. This isn't the first time that we have heard of the surname Kumoi, because there's a character called Gyokaku Kumoi from the new captain Shusuke Amagai arc. He was one of the evil clan leaders who had served the Kasumioji clan, and he was involved in a conspiracy to overthrow them. Because Gyokaku appears during a filler arc, most likely he has no connection to Entetsu. But we do know that some of the filler episodes within the original Bleach anime do contain elements that Kubo had wanted to include within the manga, like the Forest of the Menos, or the Zanpakuto Rebellion arc having actual canonical designs for the Zanpakuto of each of the Shinigami. So we'll have to wait and see if Kubo reveals the origins of the Kumoi clan, and whether if this character, Gyokaku Kumoi, is a canonical character or not. Now, similar to Katori, we see Kumoi's shikai, and I am really intrigued by its shape. It is a long katana which is encircled by multiple ringlets on a blue scabbard. Entetsu also possesses great physical strength, which allows him to utterly decimate the body of a Quincy via a two-handed blow from his shikai. I am speculating if his exposed yellow teeth have something to do with the abilities that he possesses, or it could be something intrinsically linked to his backstory. What if he is an ancestor to Mayuri Kurosuchi, who is also known for expressing himself via body art? Next up, we have the founding captain of the 10th Division, Furuoka Otogawa. His successors include the likes of Isshin Shiba and Toshiro Hitsugaya. While the duties of the 10th Division are not explicitly stated within the manga or the data books, we are aware that they hold jurisdiction over protecting Naruki City from hollows, which is pretty nearby to Karakura Town. Furuoka is designed as a thin, tall man with oversized bangs that reach up to his chest. He has a very stern expression on his face, and the most notable thing about his appearance is the straw rice hat that he is holding, which is decorated with a reddish pink ribbon that he wears. It reminds me of the straw hats that the real-world samurais of the past would wear, which of course are referred to as jingasa. This is a hat especially made and designed for battle warriors in Japan. Another notable character within Bleach who also is known for wearing a straw hat is of course Shunsui Kyoraku. Who knows if Furuoki shares any more similarities with Shunsui, or if he is even related to Shunsui. Now, speaking of character relations, when these designs were initially revealed to us, a lot of people, including myself, had assumed that this character had belonged to the Kuchiki clan. It's because his character design looks remarkably similar to Byakuya Kuchiki. Now, with his name being Furuoki Otogawa, it is highly unlikely that he is linked to the Kuchikis. Again, the common theme here with the original Gotei 13 is that he is a bloodthirsty criminal. While it's hard to believe by looking at some of their appearances, we have to remember that each of these individuals were hand-selected by Yamamoto in order to form his elite fighting force. force. In terms of Furuoki's Zanpakuto, it takes the form of a katana with a teal handle and a rectangular golden sword guard, which is designed as tightly packed straight lines. Now finally, we're moving on to a character that we are all well aware of and we can easily recognize. This is the very first captain of the 11th Division, who was recently the former captain of the 4th Division. I'm of course referring to Unohana Retsu, or as she was known during the era of the original Gotei 13, Unohana Yachiru, the very first Kinpachi. She is among one of the survivors of the original Gotei 13 who are lived right up until the 1000-year Blood War arc. Unohana is well over 1,000 years old, easily making her one of the oldest captains within Bleach. I think that it has been stated that she retains her youthful appearance because of some exclusive Soul Society skincare regime, or it's just that wrinkles and lines are too afraid to appear on the face of Unohana. As I've mentioned earlier, before she was recruited by Yamamoto, she had earned herself a fearsome reputation, known for being one of the most ruthless, bloodthirsty criminals to have ever existed within the history of the Soul Society. During the 1000-year Blood War arc, the newly appointed head captain Shunsui, as one of his first orders, he requests Unohana to teach Kinpachi Zanjutsu. During Kinpachi and Unohana's battle in the underground prison Muken, we see Shunsui thinking back on Unohana's history, stating that she had given herself the name Yachiru, which means 8,000 styles, which is in reference to the endless number of swordsmanship styles which she has mastered. This revelation was very shocking to a lot of fans due to the fact that she has always been portrayed as being a very pacifistic character. She even refused to take part in battle during the Iranka arc, instead deciding to be on the sidelines so that she could focus on healing any of the casualties. Thinking about it, Unohana has way more of a parallel to Kenshin Himura, just based on all of the details that we know about her present day activities versus what we know about her criminal past. There were a couple of instances within the manga where Unohana did exude a brooding aura, which were subtle hints that Kubo had dropped about her backstory, which ended up seeping through her kind and gentle demeanor. After learning the details about her backstory, it's understandable why some characters were fearful of her, and the first time within the Bleach narrative that she raises a blade isn't against any of the antagonists, but it's for the sake of training Kinpachi because she had felt responsible for stunting his growth years ago. As far as we know, Unohana is the only Shinigami to share the same name for both her Shikai and Bankai release, and the sealed state of her Zanpakuto takes on a very unique shape, appearing as an extended katana. In episode 10 of the 1000-year Blood War arc anime, which is titled The Battle, we get a brief flashback of the time when Unohana and Kinpachi had first met. Several hundred years ago in the Rukon district, Unohana had gone on a killing spree as she racked up dozens of corpses of supposed criminals. Her desire was to find someone who was strong enough to satisfy her bloodlust. In reality, the pile of bodies had actually belonged to Kinpachi and not Unohana, and the two had begun a duel that would rekindle her unrestrained love for fierce combat. The distinct scar that we see on Unohana's chest is a gift that was given to her following her first battle against Kinpachi when he was just a child, and for most of the Bleach narrative, she actually conceals away this scar by fashioning her hair into braids at the front of her body. All things considered, Unohana does have a very plain character design, but it doesn't take away from the fact that she appears to be elegant, modest and humble in her appearance, which mirrors these very traits that she also exhibits within her personality. There is of course this dichotomy with Unohana's character, with Unohana Retsu having this warm and loving look in her eyes versus Unohana Yachiru, who effortlessly is able to terrify her opponents via the look that she gives them. Unohana comes across as a very strong woman, and the reveal at the end of the series that she was in fact the very first Kinpachi solidifies her as one of the best female characters within all of Bleach. During the special one-shot chapter No Breathes from Hell, we do learn that Unohana was in fact sent to Hell, so if the Bleach manga does continue via a Hell arc, then you can definitely expect to see Unohana again. Now let's dive into one of the most uniquely designed members of the original Gotei 13, and it's the very first captain of the 12th Division, who is called Uhin Zenjoji. He has an extremely large body and his face is decorated with a long, thick, U-shaped red mark that extends from one side of his hairline beneath his face to the other side, and under the traditional captain's coat and shihakusho, he supports a grey suit which is fastened with a string and a teal grey apron, which is adorned with a golden trim and a large curving upside down U-shaped red line. Zenjoji certainly has a unique appearance, especially with his mischievous smile, small eyes and the pronounced thin braids which set him apart from the other original Gotei 13 members, with his overly eccentric appearance making him look like a beast. What What are his reasons for dressing like this? And what's with his fascination of the red upside down U shape, which is on both his face and his clothing? I'm sure that Kubo had designed him this way because he must have some really cool backstory. And while the 12th Division wasn't associated with the Shinigami Research and Development Institute until at least 110 years ago, we can still speculate that maybe Zenjoji was responsible for conducting experiments or inventing certain tools, which would make his appearance fit this whole mad scientist motif, which is very similar to the character of Mayuri, who shares in these interests while also having a very unique appearance. Within the anime exclusive flashback, he is the individual who is seen bashing two heads together during the battle against the Empire of Light, so aside from speculating on him being somewhat of a mad scientist, there's not really much else that we can go on with this character. The final captain amongst the original Gotei 13 is a senile, decrepit old man known as Saizou Sakahone. He of course was the very first captain of the 13th Division. Is it going to be rude to say that this man looks more ancient than Yamamoto? His wrinkly skin, sunken eyes, and hunched back all point to someone who is extremely frail and frankly should be in a retirement home. When it comes to Bleach, we know that looks can be very deceiving, so there's no doubt in my mind that due to his age, it results in him possessing a great deal of battle experience and spiritual pressure. Now, Sakahone Saizou shares the same name as the Sakahone district, which is the 76th district of Eastern Rukongai, so we can theorize that he was either named after this district or this district was named in his honor for some reason. Within the anime flashback, we see Saizou actually finish off the fallen Quincy soldiers, and down the line we learn that the 13th Division ends up being led by individuals like Ukitake and then Rukia. Saizou's Zanpakuto takes the shape of a katana with a brown handle, a golden sword guard which looks like a rounded rectangle, and a small engraved circle at each corner. His Zanpakuto is sheathed within a brown scabbard. I really would love to know the reasoning behind why Yamamoto had recruited this man into his team, because at his very frail age, I doubt that there is very much that he could do. After diving deep into all of the original Gotei 13 members, fans have been wondering whether if the Zero Division was already established at this point in time. Before Kubo released his artwork showcasing the original Gotei 13, there was even some speculation that some members of the Zero Division were a part of this group. However, I wanted to point out that the Zero Division most likely predates the original Gotei 13 due to the fact that Uetsu Nimaya had created the concept of the Zanpakuto. And we see in the anime flashback scenes where each of the members of the original Gotei 13 are seen to be wielding their own unique Zanpakuto. Now we have no idea what happened to some of these captains over the course of 1,000 years, with only Unohana and Yamamoto having survived up until the present timeline of the story. Kubo revealing the story and fate of the original Gotei 13 would make for a fascinating flashback arc or side story. What if after the battle against the Quincy, Yamamoto had decided to eliminate the members of the original Gotei 13, and he had then decided to reshape the organization into a new direction which wasn't focused on being bloodthirsty and ruthless. According to Uruhara, during the Ten Back the Pendulum arc, there is no real way to retire from the Gotei 13. It is possible to have a leave of absence due to a personal reason, but if you do leave for an extended period of time, then it's classified as an expulsion. Uruhara goes on to explain that anyone who does retire will end up being imprisoned within Muken, which is the deepest level of the central underground prison reserved for special criminals who cannot be killed by ordinary means. Within the light novel Spirits Are Forever With You, we learn that Soya Izashiro, the 8th Kinpachi, was sentenced to 19,500 years of imprisonment, so people down there are serving very lengthy sentences. We can assume that most of the cast of the original Gotei 13 ended up dying, so it opens up a possibility for them returning during the Hell arc. From the one-shot chapter No Breeze from Hell, we learn that the Konso Reisei ritual has to be performed, which sends the souls of any deceased captains to Hell. We know that Unohana, Yamamoto, and Ukitake are currently in Hell, so it's going to be interesting to see if Unohana and Yamamoto will be reunited with their old work colleagues. In the end, I'm really grateful for Kubo and the 1000 Year Blood War arc anime for giving us a glimpse of the elusive original members of the Gotei 13, with them having been characterized as brutal, cold-blooded killers, and with us getting this silhouetted manga panel teasing who these characters are for so long. It was amazing when Kubo had dropped that manga spread where he reveals the design of all of the captains of the original Gotei 13, and this was right before episode 7, which had that fantastic flashback scene at the start of the episode, which showcased these characters in motion for the very first time. We've reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What did you think about my theories and speculations about the original members of the Gotei 13? season? Did their character designs live up to your expectations? Do you think that any of these characters will make an appearance in the upcoming Hell arc? I look forward to reading all of your thoughts about this first generation of captains, so be sure to continue the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.